Hello, I'm Russell Haythorne with Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Our mission today is to present a ballot issue forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. On this year's ballot is Amendment 80. Amendment 80 asks voters, shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution establishing the right of school choice for children in grades K through 12, and that choice includes neighborhood, charter, and private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment options, and future innovations in education. Our format for this forum will follow a basic debate outline with opening and closing statements, rebuttals, cross-examination, and will include responses to questions submitted by the forum organizers. Let's begin by meeting the participants who will discuss the pros and cons of Amendment 80. Beginning at my right is Christy Burton Brown, the Executive Vice President of Advance Colorado. She will be speaking in favor of Amendment 80. And on my left is Lisa Escarcega, speaking against Amendment 80. She will also have a minute for opening statements. Welcome to both of you, and to our very small studio audience, this is your chance to applaud. Very good. We will begin with 1 minute opening statements, as I mentioned, from both of our speakers. Christy Burton Brown, you are speaking for Amendment 80, and you have 1 minute. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, and welcome to everyone listening. As the mom of 2 school-aged children, Amendment 80 is an essential part of preserving the school choice rights we already enjoy here in Colorado and cementing them in our Constitution so that generations to come can enjoy the rights that you and I enjoy today. Colorado has a long and strong bipartisan history of celebrating, promoting, and protecting school choice. In the 1980s, then Republican State Senator Governor Owens, who later became the governor, sponsored the Charter School Act, and it was signed into law by Democrat Governor Roy Romer. We've continued since then to cement our rights in the Constitution and protect school choice for kids across our state. Amendment 80 is the easy, simple next choice. Among 14 amendments and propositions you'll see on your ballot this year, Amendment 80 is the easiest to understand. If you enjoy the school choice rights we have today, let's together put them in our Constitution and protect them for generations to come.
All right, thank you, Christy. And now, Lisa, it is your turn. And Lisa, I apologize for neglecting to mention that you are the vice chair of the Colorado Board of Education, speaking against Amendment 80, and you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Very good, thank you. Amendment 80 is a misleading and unnecessary measure that purports to be about school choice. Colorado families have had school choice for 30 years, and no one is trying to take that away. The catch here is that this measure includes private schools, placing those words in our Constitution for the first time. Families in our state have always been able to send their students to private schools. By attempting to create a constitutional right for families to attend private schools, proponents of this measure are paving the way for private schools to receive our tax dollars. This risks creating a voucher system that would devastate public school funding, particularly for our rural schools. Public schools in the state of Colorado serve 95% of the students. Our tax dollars should go to public schools, not private schools that have no accountability to taxpayers and can deny admission based on factors like religion, special needs, and sexual orientation. A vote against Amendment 80 is a perfect vote to protect public education.
All right, and that brings us to our rebuttal portion of this debate. And Lisa, we will start with you. You heard Ms. Burton Brown's opening statement. You have 1 minute to respond in your rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. Proponents of this measure want you to believe that Amendment 80 is simple and clear, and that is not the case. Even the Christian home educators of Colorado are opposing this because they think it could erode the rights of parents like them because of how vague it is. Lawyers I've spoken to think that this measure will result in a slew of litigation and unforeseen consequences because it's so poorly written. Proponents also want voters to believe that school choice is under attack in the state. It is not. School choice has been a pillar of our education system for 30 years and has had bipartisan support, as mentioned, for decades. We agree parents should have the final say on where to send their students to school, and that's not up for debate. What this measure really does is it puts public schools that serve 95% of our students at risk, which is why countless groups, including those representing school boards, superintendents, rural schools from across the state, are opposing this. By creating a constitutional right to private schools, 80 clears a legal pathway for our public tax dollars to fund them without any transparency or oversight.
Thank you, Lisa. And Christy, you heard Lisa's opening statement and rebuttal, and now it's your chance to offer rebuttal to her opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Special interest groups like the Teachers Union and other organizations are trying to mislead voters. They're bringing up conspiracy theories that Amendment 80 is a funding amendment, when really, if you as the voter read it for yourself, you'll see in the very clear language of our amendment that it is simply based on your rights. If you enjoy the current rights to school choice that we have in Colorado, if you believe that one size doesn't fit all, that every child deserves the unique education that meets their unique needs, and that every child in every family should have better access to good schools and reach their full potential, you agree with us that supporting Amendment 80 is putting these rights into our state constitution. Those who oppose Amendment 80 prefer to trust politicians instead of letting the power rest with the people to defend our rights and preserve them in the state constitution. If the opponents believe what they are saying, that school choice is a good thing, that we should continue to celebrate it in Colorado, the best and only way to do this right now is to use the power of the people to cement these rights in our Constitution and not leave our school choice rights up to the mercy of politicians.
All right, Christy, thank you very much. Thank you to both of you. Now we enter the cross-examination portion of this debate. This is round one, and beginning in round one, Christy, you have the opportunity to ask Lisa a question, and Lisa, you'll have 1 minute to respond to Christy's question. So, Christy, I'll let you have the floor.
Excellent. All right, 70% of Coloradans support the right to school choice. Senator John Hickenlooper was asked what's the most common education mistake around the country, and he answered, assuming that a one-size-fits-all solution improves education outcomes. Since the 1980s, school choice rights have been supported on a bipartisan basis. Why do you support school choice?
Yeah. Okay. I think school choice is important. As a parent who has taken, advantage of this, and many of my colleagues and my friends, the school choice law that we have, whether it would be, to private, public, whatever that might be, it's important. We find that students flourish when schools meet their needs. What school choice is, though, in current law, absolutely protects school choice throughout this state and for any model of school that is there. Putting it and saying that there's reason that it is under attack, it's just simply not true. There has been no change to the law, and this amendment does not make any changes to our current choice law, not immediately. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. Thanks for the question, Christy. And now, Lisa, it's your opportunity to ask a question in cross-examination of Lisa, and I'll let you go, and then Christy, you'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. So, if this is just about protecting charter schools and school choice, why include private schools in the ballot language? In other words, what purpose is there to placing private schools in the state constitution this way?
Well, Lisa, if we didn't include private schools in the realm of school choice here in Colorado, that'd actually be very troubling and discriminatory against the specific choice that many parents in our state make. So when we're going to protect the rights of all families, all parents, all children, we need to include all options. And that's why Amendment 80 includes traditional neighborhood public schools, charter schools, which 15% of Colorado children attend, private schools, homeschooling, and open enrollment, that opportunity to cross district lines and go to a better school that meets your child's needs. So if we left private schools out, that would actually be very discriminatory. And as a constitutional attorney, I believe in every family's right to make the best choice for their children. The Colorado Constitution should reflect the ability to protect every family. And also, I actually agree with you that this cements the current rights we have takes them out of statute, puts them in the Constitution to preserve them for everyone forever. If we agree that those rights are important, those already include rights for private schools. So putting them in the Constitution actually doesn't change anything.
Christy, thank you. Lisa, you get another question in this round of cross-examination. You can ask Christy another question.
All right, thank you. So do you believe that private schools should be able to receive our tax dollars? Do you support a voucher system?
Lisa, I think that would be a really excellent question if we were debating in Arizona or Florida or one of the other states that's actually passing vouchers. Amendment 80 is extremely clear that it's a rights amendment, not a funding amendment. And to continually claim that Amendment 80 is a voucher or a funding amendment is very misleading to voters. It's a conspiracy theory, a scare tactic, and I think voters deserve the truth. The best way voters can get the truth about Amendment 80 is reading the Blue Book for themselves. The Colorado Blue Book that's mailed to every voter includes the exact language of Amendment 80, which has 2 sentences and says that every child deserves access to a high-quality education. Parents have the right to direct their child's education, and every K-12 child has the right to school choice. It really is that simple. It really is that clear. And I think we need to lead voters to the truth, not to what special interest groups want them to believe.
All right, thank you both. Christy, now it's your turn to ask another question of Lisa.
Great, thank you. The National Center for Education Statistics has reported that 71% of kids in charter schools come from minority families. Studies demonstrate that school choice directly benefits minority and economically disadvantaged families. Opposing Amendment 80 means that you oppose cementing these rights for the families who need them the most. Why wouldn't you work with us to strengthen them?
Thank you. Okay.
Lisa, you have 1 minute.
You bet. So again, we have our rights to school choice that have been in our state statutes for 30 years. We have the second strongest charter school laws in this nation. These things do not need to be strengthened. One of the things I'm so glad you mentioned the Blue Book. Right at the end, again, folks, go to page 30. The last sentence under the argument against Amendment 80 is ultimately this could result in redirecting funding from public schools to private and home schools. The authors of this amendment absolutely know that by having put in very vague and simple language that this sets up a doorway, whatever you want to call it, a footprint for parents or for folks with money to come in and sue the state based on the fact that you have put into the Constitution now fundamental rights to private education.
Lisa, thank you for that. Christy, one more chance to ask a question of Lisa. This is the last round for cross-examination. This is your last question.
Great. Governor Polis said investing in our children is investing in our future. We are proud that Colorado is one of only 5 states in the country that empowers every parent in our state with school choice, and will continue working to lead the nation. Amendment 80 would lead the nation and make Colorado the first state in the country to put the right to school choice in our state constitution. It would prevent politicians from interfering with that right and entrust those rights to the people. Why are you supporting politicians over people?
Okay. All right.
Lisa, you have the floor.
Good, thank you. And so when I have talked with attorneys and what even the Blue Book would indicate is that the way this is being set up, it is actually taking the language and decision-making out of parents' hands and out of politicians' hands and actually putting it into judges' hands. It is attorneys that are going to be arguing this in court and judges that are going to be deciding what things look like here. The amount of money and all of those pieces spent is not something that we support. And what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. I asked, why wouldn't you support helping Colorado lead the nation and being the first state to cement our rights in the Constitution?
Correct. And I think part of it I would ask is, why haven't other states done this before? 30 years ago, there were some meetings. DeVos says what everybody needs to do is inside their Constitution, they need to get parents' rights for education, including private, and having public dollars to fund it. The fact that it hasn't happened in 30 years, despite the plan, means there's obviously something wrong with it. And
Lisa, thank you for that. I heard a question in your last response, and this is your final chance to ask a question of Christy. If you'd like to do so, go ahead, and Christy will have 1 minute to respond.
You bet. Given that private schools don't have the same transparency or accountability standards as public schools, including the proper oversight for taxpayers to know how their dollars are being spent, Do you think they should be placed in the state constitution?
Well, Lisa, as I said in my last answer, it'd be really discriminatory if we didn't include private schools in school choice. If you're a parent in Colorado, you know that private schools are already part of the options you get to choose in Colorado. If you think a private school is best for your child, you can pay for it and send them there. Amendment 80 wouldn't change that. And the continued emphasis by the opposition in claiming that Amendment 80 is a funding amendment is a conspiracy theory. It's very false, especially if people read the Blue Book for themselves, read the language for themselves. And so I find it concerning that a member of the State Board of Education would appear to want to attack private schools. I don't think that's something that parents want to see across the state, whatever their choice is. If you love your traditional neighborhood public school, if you want your charter school, if you want private school, homeschool, open enrollment, you have that option. Amendment 80 says no politician can take that option from you, ever.
Debaters, thank you very much for that cross-examination section of this debate. Now we're moving on to organizer questions. Our speakers will respond to questions submitted by the forum organizers. Each of you will have 1 minute to respond with your answers. And Lisa Escarcega is here speaking against Amendment 80, and you will be first to answer the first question submitted by forum organizers. And it's actually a two-part question.
Okay.
So Lisa, this is for you. If Amendment 80 passes, who will decide how the funds are distributed? And how does this amendment impact the role of educators as well as parents in selecting educational content and materials? You have 1 minute.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, so who will decide? Again, if you go into the Blue Book and you look to see who is ultimately going to decide, they have the attorneys who are fair and nonpartisan have already said that because this sets up a conflict within our Constitution, it's going to have to be decided, and it's going to have to be decided in the courts. So who's going to end up deciding all this is the judges, and of course, who has the most money to file and to make their case. How will this impact? I'm not sure it impacts directly initially. What I think the question here is, does this open the door, as attorneys have said, right, that this will open up the door for public funds to go to private schools? Private schools are fine, but they actually do not follow state standards. They don't have to follow open meetings laws, open records, et cetera. I don't know what standards would look like in those schools, but that is kind of a question that I think is down the road a ways. So,
all right, Lisa, thank you for that. And now, Christy, it's your opportunity to answer the same question. Christy Burton Brown is here speaking in favor of Amendment 80. And your response to the question, I'll read it again. It's a long question, two-parter. If Amendment 80 passes, who will decide how the funds are distributed? Second part of the question, how does this amendment impact the role of educators as well as parents in selecting educational content and materials? And you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. There's actually a myth buried in the question, though, and that is that there's any funding to be determined if Amendment 80 passes. Again, if you look in your Blue Book, the fiscal note in the Blue Book says that this is a $0 amendment. There are $0 attached to Amendment 80. So there is no funding decisions that are going to be made after Amendment 80. When we talk about any constitutional right, all constitutional rights are defended and protected in courts. Think about your right to free speech, your right to freedom of religion, your other rights to equal protection as an American. Those are often defended in court by attorneys. So it doesn't make something wrong just because it would go to court and be defended by attorneys. In fact, we want our rights defended in court. And so what this would do is put the simple right to school choice in the state constitution, defend and protect what we already have and enjoy in Colorado. And parents, teachers, and schools would work together like they already do to make decisions on curriculum and other decisions in education.
All right, very good. Thank you, Christy, for that. And Christy, round two, you have the opportunity to answer the question first. And here comes the second question submitted by forum organizers. Is there opposition to Amendment 80 by different organizations who might benefit from it, such as charter schools, private schools, and homeschoolers? Why would they be opposing it?
Sure, that's a great question. And no, there are not private or charter schools that are opposing this. Charter School League is neutral. There's a private school organization supporting it. There's homeschoolers. There's members of charter boards supporting it. There's one homeschool organization opposing it, but I'm actually a homeschool grad and a homeschool mom and a constitutional attorney working on this amendment. So it would defend the rights of homeschoolers, private schoolers, charter schoolers, and there are also a great number of public school teachers and parents on the ground who support Amendment 80. And I actually think that's one of the most important points to bring out is that parents all across the state of Colorado love Amendment 80 because they support the school choice rights they have, and they don't want to see special interest groups like the teachers union spend millions of dollars of out-of-state money to take those rights away from them.
All right, Christy, we appreciate that. Lisa, your turn to
Repeat the
respond to that question, and I will repeat
because
it.
it was a little odd for me.
Yes. Is there or there is opposition to Amendment 80 by different organizations who might benefit from it, such as charter schools, private schools, and homeschoolers? Why would they be opposing it?
Okay, so I am not aware. I was thinking about who is supporting it. For those groups that are opposing it, we've got over 25 different organizations throughout the state that are opposing this bill. We've got groups as diverse as the Colorado Association of School Boards that have representation across the state. We have Colorado Association of School Executives that represent superintendents from across the state. The Colorado Rural Alliance, which is an organization that supports rural schools who this really, really potentially hurts. They have some of the most just diverse conservative districts that they support in the state. So the groups that represent this represent an entire swath of the Colorado voters in our state.
All right, moving on to question number 3, submitted by the forum organizers, and we'll continue with those questions. And Lisa, you'll be the first to respond to this question. If this amendment is passed, will schools receiving public funds be required to accept all students who require additional resources, such as special needs students, ESL immigrant students, etc.?
Okay, thank you. So I think if I can understand where the question is going. So assuming that this ballot initiative passed and the challenges start in court, where parents sue for the right, they sue the state for the right to have dollars going from public education into their private schools. Once that happens, private schools, they are not under public view, right? They're not under the public's eyes, I like to say. And as I mentioned, they don't have to, right? They don't have to follow open meetings, open records, financial transparency. They don't have to have licensed teachers. They don't have to follow anti-discrimination laws in our state. And you're essentially looking at all of the oversight and the protections that we have for our public school students are thrown out the window. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lisa. And now, Christy, it's your turn to answer that question. If this amendment passes, will schools, charter, private, otherwise, receiving public funds be required to accept all students who require additional resources like special needs children, ESL immigrant students, etc.? And you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Great question. And I think how the question is worded asks right after Amendment 80 is passed, will schools that get public funds have to serve all these students? And the answer is yes, they do. All the schools that already get public funding have to serve all these students. My nephew is a special needs student, and he goes to his neighborhood public school and gets his needs met. So all the schools that already are getting public funding are going to be exactly the same schools once Amendment 80 passes. They are going to be required to serve all these children as they should be. And that's going to continue after Amendment 80. What Amendment 80 does when it passes is it takes our rights that we already have in the Constitution, the rights that parents already exercise to choose the best school for their children, and it says all of these choices are equal. All of these choices are protected in the Constitution. You know what's best for your child. Your kid is unique. They have unique needs, and we need better access to good schools. Amendment 80 would provide that and say that every child should be able to reach his or her full potential by cementing the rights we already enjoy in the state constitution.
All right, thank you, debaters, very much for answering those questions submitted by forum organizers. Your answers were so robust that we don't have time for questions 4 and 5, so we are moving into the closing arguments segment of this debate. And that brings us to the end of the Q&A segment. and we're moving to those closing statements. Each speaker will get 1 minute to offer a closing statement, and we will go in reverse order of the opening statements. So Lisa, we will begin with you, and
Thank
you
you.
have 1 minute.
You bet. So this measure is disguised as a referendum on parent choice. It does nothing to increase public school choice in Colorado, even though you just heard the statement that it would create better access. It changes nothing. The proponents of this measure are resorting to this misleading incremental approach to clear a legal path to a voucher system, because Coloradans have already rejected vouchers time and time again at both the ballot box and at the legislature, and there's a good reason for that. Voucher systems are draining state budgets in places like Arizona, where taxpayers are footing the bill for $900 million voucher program that is subsidizing education for families that were already sending their kids to private schools. A voucher system in our state would risk limited funding for public schools that serve 95% of our students, with rural schools being most at risk. Public funding belongs in public schools that serve the vast majority in our state, not private schools that serve the few. Our schools can't afford Amendment 80 or the voucher system it risks creating. Don't be fooled. Vote no to protect public schools.
Thank you, Lisa, very much for that closing statement. And now, Christy, it is your turn to offer a closing statement, and you have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you for participating in this debate. I think it's very clear that the argument that was just made isn't an argument against Amendment 80. When you read the language for yourself in your Blue Book and you consider whether you enjoy the rights to school choice here in Colorado, you'll understand that this is not a funding amendment. It's not a voucher system. We're not in Arizona. We're not in Florida. We're here in Colorado, in the state that we love. And if you enjoy the rights that Lisa and I both agree exist in Colorado right now, the right to send your kid to the best school that fits them, if you like those rights, anytime we like our rights, we want to defend them and protect them by cementing them in the state constitution. Think about the other rights you enjoy, and if you'd like the rights that you believe in to be in the state constitution, that's what we're doing with Amendment 80. It's simple, it's clear, it's about kids, not just numbers, it's about students, not just systems, and Amendment 80 is about supporting the rights and the opportunities of every unique child and every unique family across Colorado. Vote yes on Amendment 80 because one size doesn't fit all.
Christy, thank you very much for that closing statement. Lisa, again, thank you for being here. And on behalf of the forum organizers, I'd like to thank both of you for your participation in this forum. We hope we have given you a fair look at the pros and cons of Amendment 80. Again, Amendment 80 asks voters, shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution establishing the right of school choice for children's in grades kindergarten through 12th grade, and that choice includes neighborhood, charter, and private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment options, and future innovations in education. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, which include Interneighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. Remember, Denver's general election takes place on Tuesday, November 5th. Be sure you're registered and get out there and vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.org or denver7.com/Denver Decides. Stay with us for more Denver Decides forums. I'm Russell Haythorne with Denver 7. Thank you for joining us.